What do you get when you mix medieval Britain, a magic sword, a wizard in a pointy hat, and a king who may or may not have existed? Arthurian legend, or as I like to call it, Game of Thrones, but with fewer dragons and more shiny armor. Welcome to the wild, wobbly world of King Arthur, a guy who might have been real, might have been fake, but definitely had a killer PR team. His squad? A round table of sword-swinging bros, a wizard who spoke in riddles, and a love triangle that would make any soap opera jealous. It's the ultimate medieval fan fiction that somehow got treated like history. So buckle up as we explore knights, quests, betrayal, and one very confused kingdom trying to figure out who's in charge with a side of magic and melodrama. To understand the legend of Arthur, we need to time travel back to post-Roman Britain around the 5th or 6th century, aka the everyone's gone, now what era. The Romans had just packed up their sandals and legions, leaving behind some crumbling baths and a bunch of confused Britons wondering who was going to stop the Saxons from crashing the party. Imagine a schoolyard where the teacher, Rome, suddenly quits, and now the kids, Britons, Picts, Scots, Saxons, are left to fight over the playground with sticks and Latin grammar books. The Saxons in particular were the classic bullies pushing westward, yelling in Germanic accents and refusing to use forks. Into this chaotic mess steps the idea of a leader, someone who could unite the Britons, push back the Saxons, and maybe even inspire some hope. Enter Arthur, maybe a warlord, maybe a king, maybe an AI hallucination from the Dark Ages. It's honestly unclear. The first mentions of Arthur come from texts like The History of the Britons, looking at you, Nennius. And then things really kick off with Geoffrey of Monmouth, the medieval author equivalent of a Hollywood screenwriter on a caffeine binge. Geoffrey took vague mentions and turned them into epic tales. Castles, dragons, wizard mentors and all, the groundwork was laid. Whether Arthur was real or just Britain's medieval mascot didn't matter. What mattered was the myth, and myths have a way of taking on a life of their own. So, Britain was basically on fire. Saxons were invading like it was Black Friday at a medieval Tesco, and everyone was screaming in different Celtic dialects. Amid the chaos, a legend rises. A boy named Arthur, allegedly born of a magical one-night stand between Uther Pendragon and Igraine thanks to Merlin, who moonlighted as a wizard, political advisor, and full-time chaos gremlin. Arthur's early life is a bit like a Disney origin story. Raised in secret, clueless about his royal bloodline. Until one day, surprise, he pulls a sword out of a stone while just looking for a replacement weapon for his big brother. And boom, congratulations, you're king now, no HR process, no elections, just magical metal-based meritocracy. Cue the slow clap from skeptical nobles, followed by lots of bloodshed to convince them he's legit. Arthur sets up shop in Camelot, the ultimate medieval startup. He gets a bunch of knights together, Lancelot, Gawain, Percival, and Sir Probably Not Canon, and they form the Round Table, a big circular therapy group for alpha males with swords. The table symbolizes equality, which is hilarious because they all still follow a hierarchy. But hey, no one sits at the head, so that's progress. Merlin hangs around being cryptic, dropping prophecies like, "Don't marry your sister," and "This whole thing is going to end in flames." Naturally, no one listens. Things go sideways when Queen Guinevere and Sir Lancelot fall for each other. You'd think knights would have better impulse control, but nope, the two sneak around Camelot like teenagers in a Shakespeare play. Meanwhile, the knights go off on a giant Pokémon side quest, the quest for the Holy Grail. No one's really sure what it is, a cup? An idea? A metaphor? But they want it anyway. Spoiler, only Sir Galahad finds it, has a spiritual moment, and then dies, like immediately. Most knights just get lost, go insane, or forget why they even left in the first place. Act 4, Mordred, daddy issues, and doom enter Mordred. Arthur's illegitimate son or nephew, yes, it's that kind of family tree, born from Arthur unknowingly hooking up with his half-sister Morgause. Medieval genetics were a minefield. Mordred grows up with the personality of a bitter Reddit troll. He eventually leads a rebellion, exposes the Lancelot-Guinevere affair, awkward, and declares himself king, while Arthur is out dealing with betrayal and property damage. This leads to the legendary Battle of Camlan, where everyone dies spectacularly. Arthur kills Mordred, Mordred fatally wounds Arthur, and just like that, Camelot collapses like a badly stacked Jenga tower. Final scene. The once and future king mortally wounded, Arthur is taken to Avalon, a mystical island that may or may not be in Wales, Glastonbury, or your cousin's Dungeons and Dragons campaign. He hands off Excalibur to the Lady of the Lake, 10/10 customer service, and sails off into the mist. According to legend, Arthur isn't dead, he's just taking the longest nap in British history and will return when Britain needs him most. So, Brexit didn't qualify? What happens when Camelot crashes with Arthur gone and the round table shattered like your grandma's porcelain tea set during an earthquake? Britain plunged back into chaos. The Saxons, who'd been momentarily kept in check by Arthur's legendary PR team and pointy sword, went back to invading like it was a national hobby. The dream of Camelot justice, unity, equal seating arrangements faded into mist, surviving only in bard songs, monk manuscripts, and eventually Hollywood blockbusters starring actors with suspiciously modern teeth. Medieval chroniclers like Geoffrey of Monmouth turned Arthur into Britain's superhero king. Later, the Victorians romanticized him into a symbol of lost chivalry, complete with tragic romance and awkward chainmail hugs. Historians today argue whether Arthur even existed. Was he a real 5th century warlord, a composite of several leaders, or just medieval fan fiction that got wildly out of hand? Whatever the truth, Arthur's story became the mythic foundation of British identity, a perfect kingdom that probably never was, led by a king who maybe didn't exist but still promised he'd be back. Like a medieval Terminator, but with more horses. Arthur, the king who maybe was, but definitely is so. Was Arthur a real guy, a legend, a medieval Jedi? The answer is yes, and also no. And also maybe whether he was a gritty post-Roman warlord rallying Britons against the Saxons or a shiny king who kept a wizard on retainer and fought dragons before breakfast, one thing's clear. Arthur became the poster child for what if everything had gone right and then horribly wrong. His legend outlived kingdoms, kings, and even facts. It shaped British nationalism, inspired centuries of storytelling, and gave us the eternal promise of the once and future king. In the end, Arthur's story isn't about what was, it's about what could be, an ideal, a fantasy, a myth wrapped in chainmail and drama. And if nothing else, he taught us one important lesson. Never trust magical swords embedded in public monuments. If you enjoyed this myth-soaked roller coaster through Arthurian Britain, don't just vanish into the mist like our boy Arthur. Hit that like button, subscribe for more legendary breakdowns, and drop a comment. Was Arthur real or just medieval fanfic? Either way, history's never been this dramatic or this entertaining.